Alright, I'm working on my 2002 Mazda Tribute, and you can see I've already got it lifted up in the air and everything here. We're going to be replacing the front crank seal, and I got this from AutoZone. This is a part number. So you'll want to get your vehicle up off the ground. Obviously the first thing we're going to do, make sure to use jack stands, blocks, whatever you have. First thing we're going to do is take a 3/4 got here and remove all of these lugs here and get this wheel off. Okay, with that wheel off, we're going to get in here. We've got a push tab here. You'll want to pop that off. We've got some 10 millimeters here and here. We're just going to go ahead and remove all of these, and then we've got some up here on the part up here in the front as well. Okay, so up here under the front of the vehicle, take these 10 millimeters out right here. Also one on the side right here. Okay, and with that out of the way, you'll be able to see in here. We can just remove this completely. And now we're going to get in here on this bolt. Okay, before we can loosen this, we got to get the belt off. We've got a 3/8 drive. We've got to get on this tensioner. Okay, and so you're going to just go this way. You're going to push towards the rear of the vehicle and just pop your belt off. You can see it loosened it up. Okay, and this is an 18 millimeter we're going to be getting on here. We're going to be using the impact to get this loose. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get this off. It's pretty easy with impact. You'll note the keyway right here, they've got some silicone in there. We'll need to make sure we replace that when we put this back on. So you'll want to spray these down with some WD-40 or something. I'm using this white lithium grease because they're going to be pretty rusty. You should be able to get a 5, 16, 18 bolt, about yay long. But you should be able to get them started, and they should thread. At least with your wrench, you should be able to thread them in here. If not, you can get 5, 16, 18 tap from pretty much anywhere, hardware stores, and just go through it and carefully clean the threads out. But usually you can just get a bolt started in there, by using a little bit of. Now you could have, you want to make sure you don't have a boogered up bolt or anything too that you're working with. So what we're going to do is get 3 of these bolts started in here, and I'll show you how we're going to set it up. Okay, I was incorrect. These are an M8 by 1.25, if it would focus. So that is the size you want there. Anyways, it won't focus. M8 1.25. And this length here will get it done too. But I actually had some of these in the package. I was just mistaken when I was looking at my kit there. I thought it was a standard size, but it wasn't. It's metric, so you'll need to get some M8 by 1.25, and you'll also, like I said, need to get a tap if they're messed up. Usually just a little bit of lubricant will get it done, and you're able to thread them in there. So you should be able to get them through there fairly easy by hand after you get it started with a little bit of spray lubricant. Okay, make sure your bolts are the same length. You'll want to stack some washers because it can really bend and try to pull through your puller there. So stack you up some washers, or a big thick washer. But you can see how we went through this one and then through this one long middle side. So it should be set up just like that. Okay, now we got this piece it just snaps on to the end of this. It's like a little O-ring. It just kind of snaps on. That's just to keep from damaging any threads or anything. So I'm going to put that back in behind here. I'm just going to slip it in, and I'll have to get my other hand. I may have to back this off just a little bit to slip it into place, and then I'm going to screw in my bolt. Okay, and on these bolts, you just want to thread them all the way through. Make sure you got them just through your crank pulley there, so you know you got enough thread so it's not going to be stripping. You know, we've got it threaded down good. You can see how that's seated on there. Now we're just going to get back here with a 3/4, I believe, and we're just going to tighten this thing up, and it'll just start pulling it right off now that we're on here. Okay, so we've got it going. Usually once you get it started, it'll come off fairly easy. I mean, it's not even, I'm using a long handle, but it's not even enough pressure I'm putting on it to even turn the crank over. So it's coming. So let's do this until it gets close to being loose, and then we'll get up there and kind of get a hand on it so it ain't popping off here. And it's got a keyway, so all we have to do is just line it back up with that keyway. You can see how far we've got it there now. So we're just using a 3/4 on this end here. And this, you can get these pullers pretty much anywhere. You can even get loaner tools from some part stores. So I'm getting pretty close to getting it loose here, so I'm going to go ahead and get my other hand on it here, because when it comes loose I'm going to have to grab this whole thing. Okay, and there we are, loose. So we just pull it down. Now we're done with our puller. We'll just take this completely off here. As far as putting it back on, I usually just use the bolt. I'll tap it a little bit and use the bolt, and if I have to, I'll hunt down a longer bolt. It's just slightly longer. And this is not on there that difficult. I mean, it's very easy to pull this off. And you can see all the leakage coming around here. And of course it gets on this, and then it slings everywhere else and winds up all over the front, so you can't tell what's leaking and what's not. So now it's possible you could have other problems. I've dealt with the valve covers on here and various other things. I mean, it could be leaking from the front cover, but I believe it's just mainly coming from this crank seal here. So anyways, we got that off of there, so we're done with the puller now. So we're just going to go ahead and get our, and this, since it's got that silicone state on there, I may not even mess with it, because that should keep that from coming through. So we're going to go ahead and a lot of times I will get a screw and start it to push this thing off. I'm going to try it with a screwdriver first and see how difficult it is and judge by that. And then if I have to, I'm just going to drill a small hole away from the side, try to get in the middle of the seal, and then get you a screw and get it started, preferably a little bit of a flat bottom screw so you're not damaging anything in there, but it shouldn't hurt nothing. But that screw will just pull it right off, but we'll see. Okay, and it's a good idea to drill like up in the top somewhere. I wasn't having any luck there, so I went through the side, just made a little hole. Just going to be using a little screw, and I want to get it started. You can't really see where I made the hole, it's just a small one, but we're just going to get this screw started here, and it'll push it right off. I tried it with a screwdriver, it wasn't coming, it's really tight. Okay, and there we got our screw started really good, and I'm just going to go ahead and get on here, and it'll just, you can see how it's starting to move. It usually doesn't take a whole lot, and if it doesn't, if it tries to slip, a lot of times you can grab a hold of this screw now, which it's like slipping on me. Usually it'll push it right off. This here's slipping, but now I'm going to get my hammer and just pull on this. Okay, I actually just used a couple of screwdrivers to pop this off. It was actually easier. Normally the screw will work, but in this case it wasn't doing it. So I tried a couple different times. So I just got a little bit bigger screwdriver and another one, and just utilized both of them to get under. Just be careful and do not scratch that inner bore right there. That's the main thing. Do not scratch that surface. Okay, here's our replacement seal, and you'll notice the Loctite around it there, and I've done a comparison, and just clean that off a little bit. So a lot of times I just like to take, and I'll get a little block of wood and just tap. You got to start off straight, but we'll get a block of wood and just kind of tap this thing down flush. We just want it flush with this surface here. And just kind of hold one side while you get the other side started. Like I said, I'm just using this block of wood and a hammer and just tapping all the way around, just evenly. Okay, and there we have it. You can see that nice and flush. And the thing about that block of wood, it will stop when it hits this surface, so you don't wind up pushing it too far. So there we are. Now just take you some clean motor oil, put around this really good. Make sure you put lots of clean motor oil right around that seal. Now you could have done it before you stuck it in there. It's up to you, but just, you don't want this inner seal here to be dry. So I'm going to go ahead and do that at this point. And then we just have to slip this back on. We just line it. You see our keyway right there. We're just going to line that keyway right back up with that. And we'll just got to gently tap it on with the rubber mallet, and then we'll just start threading it back on. Okay, I couldn't find a bolt to fit this, so I just tapped it with my heavy rubber mallet until I got it down far enough, and now I can actually get a couple threads on that bolt there, and we're just going to start out slowly with a ratchet. And make sure that you at least got a couple threads started before you take off tightening on it to pull it on down, because you will ruin the bolt. And you'll know when it's tight. It'll just completely stop, and then you can just torque it on down. Okay, now I've just tightened this down with the impact. If you're going to torque it by hand, you'd want to, use one of these bolt holes, maybe bolt you down a chain or something that you could hook back here or rather that way, to hold this thing still while you tighten it up. But easiest way is with the impact, because otherwise you're having to hold this thing still. Okay, and like I said, you can do this without an impact. However, you can get your hands on an electric or a pneumatic, but if you have to, you know, I have took chains and stuff and, you know, either bolted down or whatever I had to do to break it loose or to tighten it just to hold it still. And they also have a piece that will go in and clamp the flex plate, so you got that option. So anyways, another thing I wanted to point out while you're at this, if it's been leaking, make sure that you go ahead and replace your belt. It's a very good idea because that oil will eat the belt up. And I actually had an extra, so I slapped that on here. So anyways, other than getting your cover back on at this point, everything's pretty much finished up. I'm not going to be putting mine on. I'm just going to slap the wheel on. I actually didn't have it on before, but I wanted to show, you know, what you were going to need to remove there. So I'm going to go ahead and just slap the wheel on at this point. Okay, so we got our wheel back on there, and we've got this front crank seal all finished up. So that's going to conclude the video. If you found it helpful, give it a like. As always, I invite you to subscribe, and I thank you for watching.